The small town of Millfield was known for its peacefulness, but on this foggy night, something sinister was stirring. The air was thick with mist, making it difficult to see more than a few feet in front of you. Lila, a young woman in her mid-20s, was driving home from work when she noticed something strange. The roads were deserted, and all the houses she passed were dark, as if everyone had vanished into thin air. Suddenly, her car engine sputtered and died. She tried to start it again, but it wouldn't budge. Lila was stuck, alone on a deserted road in the middle of a dense fog. She stepped out of the car and looked around. The mist was so thick that she could barely see her own hand in front of her face. The only sounds she could hear were the distant hoot of an owl and the crunch of leaves underfoot. As she started to walk, she felt a sense of unease creeping over her. The fog seemed to be closing in, making it even harder to see. She was certain she was being watched. Just as she was about to turn back, she saw a figure in the distance. It was a man, dressed in a long coat, with a wide-brimmed hat that obscured his face. Lila felt a chill run down her spine. She wasn't sure if she should approach the stranger, but she had no other choice. As she approached him, the figure suddenly disappeared into the fog. Lila was left alone once again, with a growing sense of fear and unease. She quickened her pace, eager to get home, but she had a feeling that she was being followed. Suddenly, she heard footsteps behind her, getting closer and closer. She turned around, but there was no one there. Lila started to run, her heart pounding in her chest. She was being chased by something she couldn't see, and she didn't know how to escape. The fog seemed to be closing in, making it harder and harder to see. Just when she thought she couldn't run anymore, she saw a light in the distance. She sprinted towards it, not caring what it was or who was there. She was desperate for a way out. When she finally reached the light, she was relieved to see that it was a small cabin. She stumbled inside, panting and sweating. She was safe. For now. As she looked around, she realized that the cabin was not what it seemed. It was dark, musty, and filled with strange artifacts. She was trapped, and she had a feeling that she wasn't alone. Lila's relief was short-lived as she took in her surroundings. The cabin was cluttered with old and decaying furniture, and the walls were adorned with strange symbols and paintings. The air was thick with the smell of must and decay, and she could hear the sound of something moving in the shadows. She was about to turn and run back into the fog when she heard a creaking noise from upstairs. She hesitated for a moment, her instincts telling her to leave, but her curiosity got the better of her. She slowly made her way up the creaky staircase, her heart pounding in her chest. As she reached the top of the stairs, she was faced with a long hallway, lined with doors on either side. Each door was slightly ajar, revealing a glimpse of the darkness beyond. She could hear faint whispers and whispers coming from one of the rooms, and she felt an overwhelming sense of dread. She slowly made her way down the hallway, her hand shaking as she reached for the door handle. She pushed the door open, revealing a small room filled with strange and sinister artifacts. There was a long table in the center of the room, covered in maps and old books, and a single candle flickering on the windowsill. As she gazed around the room, she noticed a figure in the corner, shrouded in shadows. The figure slowly stepped into the light, revealing a gaunt and pale man with piercing eyes. He smiled at Lila, his lips curling into a sinister grin. "Welcome to my home," he said in a quiet voice. "I've been waiting for you." Lila took a step back, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew that she had stumbled into something far beyond her understanding, and she wasn't sure she would make it out alive. The man took a step towards Lila, his smile never leaving his face. She could feel the fear gripping her, making it hard to breathe. "Who are you?" she managed to stammer out. "I am the caretaker of this place," he said, his voice low and menacing. "I've been waiting for someone to come and take over my duties. Someone like you." Lila felt a cold sweat break out on her forehead. She knew that she had to get out of there, but she was trapped. The caretaker was blocking her only way out. "What do you want from me?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "I need someone to continue my work," he said, his eyes never leaving hers. "Someone to keep the fog at bay, to prevent it from spreading beyond the boundaries of this town." Lila felt a chill run down her spine. She had no idea what he was talking about, but she knew that she had to escape. "I can't help you," she said, taking a step back. "I just want to go home." The caretaker's smile faded, replaced by a look of anger. "You don't have a choice," he said, his voice rising. "You are the only one who can stop the fog, and you will do as I say." Lila turned and ran back towards the staircase, but the caretaker was too fast. He caught her by the arm, his grip tight and unyielding. "You belong to me now," he said, pulling her towards him. Lila struggled against the caretaker's grip, but it was no use. He was too strong. She was dragged back into the room, the door slamming shut behind her. "You stay here and do as I say," he said, his voice cold and unyielding. "You will learn the ways of the fog, and you will learn to control it." Lila was terrified, her mind racing as she tried to find a way out. She knew that she was in grave danger, and she had no idea how to escape. The caretaker reached into a cabinet and pulled out a large book, its cover worn and tattered. He placed the book on the table in front of Lila, and she could see that it was filled with strange symbols and writing. "This is the key to controlling the fog," he said, his eyes glowing in the candlelight. "You will study this book and learn the ways of the fog." Lila was horrified. She knew that she had to escape, but she had no idea how. The caretaker was watching her closely, his eyes never leaving her face. She could feel the fog closing in, its tendrils reaching out to claim her. She knew that she was trapped, and she had no idea how to escape. Lila spent the next few days locked in the cabin, studying the strange book and learning about the fog. The caretaker never left her side, always watching her, always waiting for her to make a mistake. She learned that the fog was a living entity, a malevolent force that threatened the town. The caretaker and those before him were tasked with keeping the fog at bay, to prevent it from spreading beyond the boundaries of the town. But as she learned more about the fog, she began to realize that the caretaker was not what he seemed. He was cruel and manipulative, using her to do his bidding. She knew that she had to escape, but she was afraid. The fog was all around her, closing in, waiting to claim her. And then, one night, as she was studying the book by candlelight, she found a passage that described a way to escape the fog. It was a dangerous and risky plan, but it was her only hope. She waited until the caretaker was asleep, and then she snuck out of the cabin, making her way towards the town. The fog was thick and all-consuming, but she could feel the hope growing inside of her. She knew that she was close, that she was almost free. Lila finally reached the edge of the town, her heart pounding with fear and excitement. She was so close to escape, but she could feel the fog closing in, its tendrils reaching out to claim her. She had to act fast. She closed her eyes and concentrated, calling forth the knowledge she had gained from the book. She felt a power rising within her, a power that was not her own. She opened her eyes and raised her hands, facing the fog. With a cry of defiance, she pushed against the fog, using all the power she had gained from her studies. For a moment, nothing happened. And then, with a sudden burst of energy, the fog began to recede, its tendrils retracting back into the shadows. Lila was free. She ran towards the town, her heart filled with relief and joy. She knew that she would never forget the terror she had faced, but she was determined to never let it control her again. And as she ran, she could feel the power within her, the power of the fog, fading away. She was free, and she was never going back. Lila spent the next few months recovering from her experience in the foggy town. She had nightmares about the caretaker and the fog, but she was determined to put it all behind her. However, one day, as she was walking down the street, she noticed something strange. There was a fog rolling in, and it seemed to be heading straight for her. She tried to run, but her legs wouldn't move. She was frozen in place, her heart pounding in her chest. And then, from within the fog, she heard a voice. It was the caretaker, his voice cold and cruel. "You may have escaped the fog once, but you will never escape it again. You belong to it, just as I do." Lila tried to scream, but no sound came out. The fog engulfed her, and she was lost within its depths once more.